In this episode of the Intentional Clinician podcast with Paul Krauss, I'm going to be interviewing Dr. Patricia Zurita Ona. And she is a psychologist originally from Bolivia and is practicing in the San Francisco Bay Area for over 20 years. If you are interested in how to deal with anxiety, she is an expert in acceptance and commitment therapy. And in this podcast, we talk about that and how she has adapted it in books for all different ages. She also discusses openly and candidly her own story about how she first had a panic attack and how anxiety can really narrow our lives and create some habits and some stories that don't serve us. So if you are ready to stop playing it safe and not let anxiety rule your life, this is the episode for you. All right, let's get to the interview. Welcoming to the podcast, Dr. Patricia Zurita Ona. Thank you so much for being here today.
Paul, thank you so much for having me, and it's such a treat to chat with you today.
Absolutely. I appreciate that, and I'm excited to learn all about your work as you've been doing quite a lot of work with acceptance and commitment therapy and your own sort of take on that with the helping folks with anxiety and procrastination behaviors move from playing it safe to really living. So could you kind of tell me what got you into doing this approach?
That's such a great question. The shortest story for the audience is that I am a person traveling with all types of anxieties in this life. I was born in Bolivia in South America, and I was born in the middle of a dictatorship that my country was going through. So at a very young age, I understood very well what happens when a culture or a group of people is shaped by fear. I didn't witness violence firsthand, but you can understand when people are making authoritarian decisions and people are scared and people develop this strong fear about rocking the boat, right? And later on in my own life, I had panic attacks. I had my first panic attack when I was maybe 21 or 22 years old. I was driving on a freeway in Bolivia after a wonderful camping trip. And then next thing I know, I see this humongous truck on the other lane. And I had that image of dying in a car accident. And then I'm holding very hard onto the wheel and I start hyperventilating. And it felt like for 2 hours I couldn't breathe, right? So I think I had different moments in my life, direct experience with anxiety, with fears, with worries. I have been fortunate that I learned evidence-based skills to manage my own fears. And I think my career and my work has focused on disseminating those skills to any person that gets worried, anxious, or stressed. I think to be human is to be anxious. And I think also when we get anxious, it is very natural that we all are going to play it safe. We do everything we can to minimize, get rid, and stop suffering when we feel uncomfortable. The challenge is how often we play it safe, why we do it, and how it really works in our life.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And I know a lot of people have watched your TED Talk, Stop Playing It Safe and Start Living. And you've also authored 7 workbooks on anxiety, which you can get at your website. I was taking a look at that. This is drzee.com. And so many other things you've been involved in. But I really appreciate that you have basically started down this path of helping folks from your own experience of having that panic attack and dealing and living with anxiety. And obviously you are now living in California, if I'm not mistaken, and have an entire directing. You direct an entire therapy center right over there in the East Bay. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct. Yes. I live in the Golden State in California. We have beautiful weather here. And I do have what I will describe as a boutique therapy coaching practice specialized on anxiety. I think, again, I was fortunate to discover evidence-based skills and compassionate-based skills to tackle my own fears. But I think I deeply believe that learning to navigate our fears is the skill of the 21st century, given the time that we're living. I think that one of the things that happens when we quickly respond to anxiety, when we don't know how to manage a panic attack or the fears of being a failure or the fears of not being good enough, is that we became a person that we're not meant to be. We narrow our life, our relationship shrink. But if you learn different skills to approach your fears, your worries, your anxieties with compassion and with the benefit of psychological science, I think your life can thrive and you become the person you want to be. So I think that's what I'm very, very passionate about. And I have done a bunch of things over the years with that purpose, whether that's writing a book, whether that's giving a TEDx talk, whether that's having these conversations. I think that we all need to really reflect on how do we respond to every anxious thought that shows up in our mind. Am I giving into it so quickly? How do I play it safe? Right? Is it helping me to move forward towards my values? Or is it actually pulling me back from being the person I want to be?
Yes, that's a very good point. I mean, living in today's culture and, well, even before, but now with the influx of information that's constantly available from all different viewpoints and contexts, and really knowing about everything, you can pretty much find out about anything in the world that the news covers anywhere you are. So with that, our nervous systems are very inundated with information. And then we have the local worries as well. You know, all the local things and family and things that are affecting us close by. And I know you really like acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT. And in fact, I was looking at some of your workbooks here. Escaping the emotional roller coaster. I love that for the emotionally sensitive person. I believe I've seen this one in multiple offices I've been in, which was the healing emotional pain workbook that you contributed to.
That's true. I was a co-author of that book. Yeah.
And I've also seen the living beyond OCD using acceptance and commitment therapy. So you've kind of approached so many. I could keep reading all these titles, but it sounds like you from what I'm seeing, you're trying to make this accessible for people. And so that anybody could learn these skills and use them. And I just kind of want to know a little bit more about that approach that you utilize there.
Yeah, well, that is such a kind question, and thank you for taking a look to the books that I have published. So when we think about therapy, there is this type of therapy called evidence-based practices, right? Which basically means that we have researched some of the interventions and skills that we're teaching to clients. And the largest approach is called cognitive behavior therapy, but there are many, many types of cognitive behavior therapy. So acceptance and commitment therapy is one type of an evidence-based approach, is one type of cognitive behavior therapy. And within ACT, as we call it, usually we're trying to teach people 6 particular skills or processes that are really, really focused on helping them to develop a different relationship with all the yucky stuff that shows up in their mind, in their bodies, and the feelings that they don't like. So, for example, one of the processes is called diffusion, which basically means learning to step back from all the stuff that your mind is telling you and look at thoughts for what they are, letters and words put together. Another skill is acceptance, which is really all about making room, sitting in and letting be all those feelings that we don't like to feel, right? And why I mention these 2 processes, because one of the things that happens with anxiety is that we don't like to be anxious. I hated when I had my panic attack, right? It's like, oh my gosh, here's my heart beating so fast. I have butterflies in my stomach. I haven't had ever a person telling me, I love to be anxious. We don't like to be anxious, period, right? So, but what happens when we feel anxious, we really do a bunch of things to control and minimize that pain. We take every anxious thought as the absolute truth, And we try to, get rid of this feeling I'm having, right? Like, that is why learning to practice acceptance and learning to practice diffusion from the ACT model are going to help all of us to develop a different relation with our fears, because we don't have to run away. But practicing these skills feels counterintuitive, right? Because acceptance means, okay, I'm noticing my heart beating fast. I'm noticing my hands are getting sweaty. Diffusion will be, I'm noticing my mind is telling me I'm having an anxious thought. I'm noticing my mind is telling me Paul is going to judge me. He's going to think I'm an idiot, right? So these two skills, which are part of the ACT model, help me to have a different relation with the internal experiences in a way that I can pause and ask myself another key process within ACT, which is looking at my values. How do I want to show up in this moment, in this conversation with Paul? Even though my mind is telling me I'm going to make a fool of myself and my hands are getting sweaty. So I mentioned three processes briefly: values, diffusion, and acceptance. But I think at the core within ACT, more than checking, is it true you're going to make a fool of yourself? What is the evidence that you're going to make a fool of yourself? What is the evidence against the thought? We are more focused in teaching you skills to be psychologically flexible. Because when you are psychologically flexible, you will be better equipped to adjust to the world outside of you. And you will also be better equipped to deal with internal messiness that we all go through without rushing to fix it, without running away from feeling anxious, but really learning to pause and check. One of the things I have been saying lately is that flexible people are happy people, right? Because we suffer much more when we get consumed with all the stuff that comes in our mind, and we overthink, we dwell, we try to minimize regret, when we try to stop feeling anxious, stop feeling worried, stop feeling sad, right? When we're flexible, and we're flexible with the stuff coming to us from the outside world, but also flexible to the panic sensations that I may be having, to my own fears, then I can make room and I have energy to choose how I want to live my life. So I think there's a lot to say of this little sentence, like happy people are flexible people, or vice versa.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're, as far as I'm hearing the technique, and you're helping people get these skills to be more flexible by asking questions, kind of slowing down, questioning one's own thoughts. So that involves something that I've heard called meta awareness, right? So where we are learning that our thoughts are readable. We can have thoughts about having thoughts. Oh, my brain is having all of these thoughts that I'm now in the elevator. I'm in the elevator right now, and it's a 10-floor building, and I'm worried that either the elevator is going to fall to the basement and I'm going to be killed, or I'm going to be stuck in here with all these people, and I don't like that. I feel like I'm going to lose all my privacy, and I'm going to have to wait hours. I'm going to be stuck. So these sort of thoughts that kind of come up. Now, the human mind is automatically going to have, unless it's focused on something, some human people have automatic anxious thoughts that are there to protect them from what do I do if the elevator gets stuck, right? But it can also be very unproductive if I don't ever take an elevator and I go to New York or Chicago and I'm climbing up 100 stairs to get to my destination, right? There's an element of trust, but with the skills, you're saying, like, okay, we all have these thoughts. How do we examine those thoughts? How do we look at them? And that's one of the skills you were talking about. It's kind of what I was just kind of reflecting on that.
Yeah, no, I think you got it, and of course you're familiar with this, right? I think what I will add to what you were mentioning is that there is this other process in ACT that is called perspective taking, or self as a context, which is really acknowledging that we are not defined by our thoughts, our feelings, or sensations, right? That's the stuff that shows up. We feel because we're human beings. Our mind thinks because we're human beings. We're sensing beings, feeling beings, thinking beings. But none of that noise defines who we are. So I think what you were mentioning, there is this meta awareness. I think it is true that there is a difference when would you mind joining me in a brief exercise?
Sure, let's do it.
Can we try? Okay. So I am going to invite you to extend both of your arms as I'm doing right now. And imagine that in each one of your fingers, you are seeing different difficult thoughts, anxious thoughts, or fears that you had maybe the last couple of months. And imagine that each one of those thoughts is printed there in each one of your fingers or in the palm of your hand. And just do the best you can to visualize how these thoughts look, whether they are in black color, the font they have, whether they are lowercase or capital letters, but just notice them for a moment. And your mind may be telling you all types of things right now. Let's notice that and see if we can go back again to notice these thoughts that are printed as letters on your hands. And I'm going to invite you now, Paul, that slowly you bring your hands close to your face, just as I'm doing, and put them in front of your eyes as your hands touch your face. And can you tell me right now, what do you see right now?
Well, I'm mostly seeing nothing. It's dark, and I can see sort of my
It's
fingers.
dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, the same for me, the same for me. Can you move your head on the left side and tell me what you see?
Okay, well, now I can sort of see the light to the left, although if I look straight forward or to the right, I see my fingers are covering up the light and I can't see anything.
Okay, let's move your head to the right side and tell me again, what do you see?
Well, to the right, I can sort of peek out and see the sunshine and the computer, but if I go center or to the left, everything's dark.
Yeah, it's hard right now. I'm going to invite you to slowly bring back to the center and slowly move your hands down, just as I'm doing right now, below your face, close to your eyes. You tell me what you see right now.
Well, now that my hands are lower, I can see you and I can see the computer. I can see outside. I see everything. Nothing's obstructing my vision.
I can see you, right? So one of the things that happens with that is that what we're doing most of the times is this, when you and I cover our face with our
covering
hands,
our
right?
eyes with our hands, yeah.
That's right. We cannot see it, right? Because all we have is the thoughts, right? But when we put them down, right, we can see, and that's diffusion, that's making room, that's having a thought. And what happens, and this is just one of the experiential exercises among many we do in our work, what happens when you learn to have your thoughts, make room for them and make room for the feelings that come along with them, you also learn to step back because your learning are not defined by them. So this meta-awareness you were referring to, we usually think of it as yourself as context, which is the transcendental self that we all have. We're not defined by the noise that happens in our mind, right? There is, I think, a lot of the skills that we teach in that sense that really the more that we can step back from our experience, the more that we can step back from being dominated, taken over by feelings, sensation, and thoughts, the better we're going to be to choose how we want to show up in a given moment, right? That's in a nutshell what we're trying to do when I say developing a new relationship with our internal experience. The byproduct of that is that we also develop a different sense of self, if I can say that.
Yes, absolutely. That makes sense completely. And I think it's a great metaphor to kind of show the differences of where your hands are and where you are. And also stepping back with the other sort of metaphor you made, which is like we are not our thoughts and feelings. We're experiencing the feelings and we're having thoughts that we can then experience effects from. But that doesn't make you who you are. But when you're caught up in kind of that spinning thinking, we can start thinking that all life is this negative moment I'm having right now, and whatever message I'm sending myself, so sort of to.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that we try to do is that we try to counter argue with our mind, right? If I have a negative thought, I try to have quickly a positive thought, right? But guess what? No matter where we are, how old we are going to have difficult thoughts, anxious thoughts. Because every time we do something we care about, of course, our mind is going to get into overprotective mode, right? And that's how we play it safe, right? The challenge is that if we don't examine how we're playing it safe, right, I think we will keep, again, narrowing our lives. If I can say a little more about that, you were asking about this at the beginning of our conversation. So every time we feel anxious, it is natural we're going to play it safe. What do I mean by play it safe? Play it safe basically are all the thinking strategies that we do to deal with anxiety. So sometimes, we try to postpone events. I try to search for certainty. I criticize myself. I anticipate a negative event. I keep thinking about the next trip I'm going to take. I need to plan every single thing, right? Sometimes I am going to try to do things right and perfectly. So in my work, I have found 10 particular ways in which people play it safe. And people can go to my website, Dr. Z, thisisdrz.com, and take the questionnaires for free. The beauty of that is that you're really going to take a peek to how you are responding when you feel anxious, worried, or stressed. Because these safety behaviors, these playing it safe moves, have become second nature for many of us. For example, if you have to buy a car, right, what are you going to do if you need to buy a car? What would you do?
Well, what I would do is I would start researching from Consumer Reports magazine, what they say some of the top cars are in terms of safety and performance.
Safety, yeah.
And maybe I would look into a hybrid or electric if I could maintain that in where I live. So yeah, I would start just looking at different types of cars and the
It
ratings.
sounds very reasonable, right?
Yeah.
I will do the same, right? But if I am consumed by anxiety, I may ask 10 people, I have gathered this information. What would you do in my shoes? Is this the right decision to make? Should I do this? But what happens later on, my wife doesn't like this car, right? Do I need to have a backup plan? So playing it safe moves become second nature because sometimes they seem very reasonable. We all want to gather data. We all want to ask others, what will they do, right? We all want to minimize regret. We all sometimes are thinking, oh my gosh, I remember the last time when I bought a car that didn't work. Oh my gosh, I don't want to be doing this. I remember, so I'm replaying past scenarios in my mind. And I can go 3 years stuck in my head, thinking about buying a car without buying a car, right?
That's true.
But if people talk to me, it seems very reasonable, right? So all these playing it safe strategies are thinking strategies that are making us stuck in our head fundamentally. And that's what we have to check, right? Is this playing it safe move productive, adaptive? Within the ACT model, the question is this playing it safe move helping me to be the person I want to be in this moment or not? Right? Fundamentally goes back to that. But the tricky part again is that they are second nature. Who doesn't want to minimize regret? Who doesn't want to make sure that you're buying the best car you can possibly buy? We all do. Right? But if we don't check how we're thinking about that, because fundamentally it's driven by fear, the fear of making mistakes, the fear of regretting the choice, the fear that something is going to change in the future. If we don't pay attention, what is really driving this? We are going to be stuck thinking a lot for years about buying a car without buying it.
Right. And then I would have regret about not buying one because I'd be taking the bus,
That's right. Yeah.
That's very good.
That's just a good. Yeah, I think academically speaking, right, people talk about safety behaviors, right? Any person working with anxiety is going to say, yeah, that's a safety behavior. That is true. It just happened that in my work, and I think you have seen this in my books, the biggest goal for me is disseminating skills in a way that are accessible to people, right? My clients relate better when I talk about, are we playing it safe? What's the playing it safe move here versus what's a safety behavior, right? Both, they are the same. But I think for some reason, playing it safe is much more relatable to the people I work with.
Yeah, I think that if you're going to disseminate skills to a lot of people around the world, you have to think of what is a simple way to say it. Because in psychology, in our programs and in our colleague talks, we like to get really interesting into theories and how those theories work with the skills. And so we'll use words that your average person really wouldn't use, such as like processing. Like if have you
That's
ever
right.
heard somebody outside of psychology say, I'm going to take a few minutes to go process all my feelings and I'll be back. No, they say, I'm mad, I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm sad. Like, I don't even know what I'm feeling. I'm numb, right? They don't say these sort of
That's
psychology
right.
jargon. So the play it safe is exactly something relatable because it's what we do, right? I'm playing it safe because I need to get a car, but I can't play it too safe or I might never get a car. And then I have to also think financially, is that financially safe? Right. So I'm
That's
thinking
right.
about, safety ratings. Now, not everybody, everyone has different thresholds of safety, right? So I would not get a convertible. However, I
There
know
you
people
go.
that say, it's okay. I drive my convertible when it's sunny outside and I am safe. I drive safely. Okay, you trust yourself that much? That's okay. I don't trust myself or other people that much, but we all have different degrees of that. So, but that
That's
examining of
true.
the thoughts is important. So
Yeah.
I want to make sure, I know we only have a couple minutes left, but I wanted to highlight that you have these quizzes that you can sort of take at the Play It Safe questionnaire on your website. And you have just released this book on the workbook for the anxious procrastinator. And I know we have no time to really discuss it, but is there a little preview you want to give us about that? The procrastinators.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for asking. Well, first of all, I really want to invite people to take the questionnaire. When I was developing, it has been, it has been, it's been a fun process for me. I actually enjoy it because I really, again, I'm sorry for repeating myself, but the thing it is important to really reflect on how we're responding to anxiety and what are the thinking strategies I use when I feel anxious, worried, or stressed, or I go into panic mode. Without that, we're at the mercy of our feelings, right? Um, the book that the ACT workbook for the anxious procrastinator, it is all based on acceptance and commitment therapy and compassion focused therapy to any person who is struggling with chronic postponement of activities and basically struggling with postponing their life, right? I describe in the first chapter some of the myths about procrastination, like the person is lazy or they're not action oriented, which has nothing to do with what leads a person to postpone things.
Mm.
And then the rest of the chapters, I talk about this fancy term process. A process is behind procrastination, which basically is a person is struggling with a strong, loud, and sticky feelings. A person sometimes is making more feeling-based choices than values-based choices. A person also gets stuck in particular rules. Like, I need to have X to do Y. If I don't have this particular laptop or this particular microphone, I cannot do this, right? And a person also that is petrified with the fear of failing in one level or another level. So all these processes led a person to postpone things, not because they are lazy, not because they're not action oriented, but because they don't have the skills to deal with loud feelings, with self-doubtful thoughts, with negative thoughts, right? And when they don't know how to make values-based choices when a feeling is very loud, when you're so scared about failing. So every chapter in the book teaches the readers skills to address that particular struggle. That's, I think, if I can add a little bit more, there is something about learning to be forgiving and compassionate with ourselves when we are stuck. And this book is also about that. While there is all the skills based on acceptance and commitment therapy, it is heavy on compassion focused therapy. And in the third chapter, the readers will see that. Research has established the difference between a tough coach and a compassionate coach, right? We already know what's the difference in our lives and what we do. But there is also something different when you really are willing to put that into action, when you learn to treat yourself with kindness, with compassion, with self-respect, even though your mind tells you that you don't deserve it. So this book and third chapter drives into that, and then you will see that in every chapter.
Okay, well, I love that, and I do love the compassion focused therapy component and self compassion, as that is an excellent approach when teaching yourself skills or learning skills. So,
It's
um,
incredible.
yeah, absolutely. I have enjoyed this time talking to you, and I really appreciate your time. I'm going to put all of these links in the show notes of this episode. And I think the best thing about this episode is that if you're ready to take action, this Dr. Patricia Zurita Ona has definitely the therapist or author for you, because that is what I see all over her website and her books is how do I do this? And even for the procrastinators, which, I do love to procrastinate certain things. Not everything, but a lot of certain things. And, it's time to just, at least get the book and open it up and sit on your desk, if you have to, a desk or a nightside table. So, yes. Well, thank you so much for your work and putting it out in the world. And I'm glad to put this out in the world.
Thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate all the work you have been doing with your podcast. And I hope that we have part 2 of this conversation at some point.
All right. I look forward to it. Thank you
Awesome.
so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Paul.
And there you have it. This has been another episode of the Intentional Clinician podcast. If you are enjoying the show, please leave us a rating on iTunes or share the show with people you know. I would surely appreciate it. As some of you know, I am passionate about preventing future violence in the United States. I have started a nonprofit with colleagues called the National Violence Prevention Hotline, which is a 501c3 organization. We are endeavoring to gain funding and collaborators and volunteers so that we can start a 24/7 hotline and chat line to reach potential perpetrators before they may act violently. It is a bold effort to curb violence and save innocent lives by working to connect with potential offenders while they are in the planning stages of violence, help to de-escalate them, and provide resources so that they can get appropriate professional help. The National Violence Prevention Hotline is looking to open up a conversation about violence in society, the causes, and the solutions. You can learn more by visiting our website at violencepreventionhotline.org. You can get involved by writing your congressperson from our website, sharing it with your network, or even donating to the cause. If you are looking for an EMDR International Association consultant, I am a consultant and I can help provide 20 hours that you need to become EMDRIA certified. Just check out the show notes and send me a message and see if we're a good fit to work together. If you are in need of counseling, do not hesitate to make an appointment with a local counselor in your area. You can also make an appointment with the excellent clinicians at Health for Life Counseling in Grand Rapids as part of the Trauma Informed Counseling Center of Grand Rapids by visiting www.healthforlifegr.com. And if you are in the state of Michigan, you can also schedule a telehealth appointment. The recording you just listened to consists of the personal opinions of Paul Krauss and his guest, and while these are based upon the literature they have read and the experience in their respective fields, the information on this podcast should not be viewed or thought of as the definitive opinion on any subject. Listening to this podcast is not a substitute for treatment. If you're in a crisis, please call 911 or the National Crisis Line at 988. Support your local bookstore by shopping at bookshop.org. That's www.bookshop.org. It donates a percentage of sales to local bookstores all across the United States, which I think gives character to our cities and a place to hang out and a place to explore. You can order from the comfort of your own home online while supporting businesses near you. If you are a therapist and you are not involved in your local counseling or therapist or social work organization, please get involved to at least pay dues so that we can have lobbyists help keep mental health care accessible at the government level, and also expanding into schools and other places that need it. And also, if you didn't know, counseling organizations and professional organizations are working to keep us from becoming gig workers for a lot of large corporations who are coming in and trying to buy up local counseling agencies or basically pay you what they pay for people to deliver food to your house. So get involved. Until next time on The Intentional Clinician, I wish you all a safe and peaceful week.